Yo, what's up guys? Today I'm going to show you how to make a Plugg beat. This Plugg beat is a little bit like, it's got a little bit, it's more emotional I guess, than like hype or whatever you would say. So basically I'll let you listen to the beat, we'll go over each part, I'll tell you what plugins I used, and then we'll talk a little bit about the mixing and the structuring. So anyways, here's how it sounds. Yeah, and if the mixing sounds a little bit weird right now with the volume, it's just because I basically accidentally saved it when I was like exporting stems, and then I do changes in the mixing. So, but yeah. Anyways, yeah, let's go over each part. So we'll start off with the melody parts. I got 5 melody parts. So yeah, so this is basically the what I would call the main melody part, and it sounds like this. So this is, let's see, it's Excelsior pad, or exactly, Excelsior Arpeggio B pad in Nexus. So how I found this pattern is just by, so a basic like Plugg pattern would be like this. So you either do 2/4, or you can do 3/4. And then you basically drag the notes out over here, and then you can do this. So like they hit here as well, so it hits before the second bar, but you change up where the notes hit a little bit until you find a comfortable spot. So I made this notes a little shorter because I don't want it to drag over to the other ones. Like I did this especially when I use a pad, because otherwise it's like not real clear where it changes up. It just doesn't sound good if you have them like reaching each other, like the chords reaching each other on every part. So for the first 2 bars I did it like this, and then I just heard like, oh yeah, this fits just by hitting twice again like the same, and then 2 end notes that lift up the melody a little for the next bar to start, basically. So yeah, the pad, I would just recommend finding, or like the main melody part, I would just recommend playing around with the chords and like see where it sounds good for you. There's some, as I said, some specific Plugg parts where it usually hits, but yeah, I would still recommend to play around, because you can do it in many different ways. So enough rambling about that. So then I added this pretty suitcase from Purity. So right now I've split everything, but I could see the pad in the background, so I could build my notes off of it. And it sounds like this. Yeah, so I wanted like a catchy, like kind of simple melody hitting with the chords. So this just fit really good. And as I said, you will be able to see your own main melody part behind this pattern when you do it yourself before you split it, which I've already done. So it's easier to know where to place the notes or where they may sound good. Anyways, then I added the Vox. It's called Synth Vox in Purity. This is just for a little bit of texture, to be honest, and it gave me more ideas how to further build the melody after I added this. So it goes like this. Yeah, it's real simple. So the pad was basically, the pad makes it not sound empty, but I still wanted to have something more to have it not feel like basically I guess hollow. So I added a ARP, which sounds like this. It's called Bell with Harmonics. It's a very typical Plugg harp or ARP. And yeah, so that with the pad makes it not sound empty. So if we listen on it together, so it's like. so they make the setting for the beat. And so to finish off the melody, I added some VZ bells inside of Plugged in Nexus. And so what I wanted to do with them was just having them kind of catchy. So the way I use VC bells is, you see how it goes in the end? It's like D5, F5, and then it goes back to G5. So it's like when it loops, it's still like, it's kind of harmonic, like hitting, like restarting it, like at the end. I don't know really how to explain it that good, but anyways, it sounds like this. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, and then that's what I mean. Like it goes back to G. So yeah, then we have the melody. So you can do, depending on what type of mood you want, which Plugg beats, you can of course do the drums in many different ways. I just wanted it kind of simple and like almost chill, not going too crazy. I changed the 808 patterns a little bit more. So yeah, this is the clap. It's just this typical, you know, hitting like on every regular part. So. And then we have the snares. I'll show you like that. Just very basic, you know, nothing special. So then I'll go over the 808 pattern. I got 2 parts. So what I do with the 808 is just, now it looks like this, but I would basically place notes like this, as I did with the clef and snare inside of here, to where. So you make it kind of basic when you place it in here, right? And then you go into the piano roll, and you press this this thing over here, and you do quick legato, which basically stretches out the notes. And yeah, it basically stretches out all the notes. And you need to do some settings like inside of the 808, which I'll go over when I'm done with this explanation. But basically, then inside of the piano roll, I changed up like where the notes were hitting a little bit, but it's still kind of basic, but it sounds like this. So yeah, when I had that, I just went into here again and I right clicked it and I did clone, because I want it to be 8 bars instead. So it's not the same with 808. Other parts sound like this. Yep. So then I went to the hi-hats. What I did with them is as well, I did the same thing with the cloning. So I have like 8 bars of it instead of 4. And I would start off with placing notes like this, as I did with the 808, and then go into the piano roll and change them, and yeah. So basically they're kind of chill. It sounds like, let's see if I can show you. For this specific beat, I don't want my hi-hats to hit at the claps or the snares. I think maybe in the other part of the hi-hats, they might hit on the snare sometime, but then it's if it like specifically works, because a lot of the time you will hear it doesn't really sound that good if it hit at the same time. Not that you can't do it, it's just in this specific beat that didn't sound good, so I went with not doing that. That's why I add the hi-hats after I've added the clap, snare, and 808s. For it's easier for me to find a spot. And then I added a chant. And I followed it up with a short chant. Yeah, that's basically it. And so let's talk a little bit about what settings should you use on your drums before we go into the mixing. So usually what I do for the clap, snare, and hi-hat is I go into here, I trim it, I normalize it, and if it has a loop point like marked like this red, you just turn it off. And yeah, that's basically it for those. And then for the 808 specifically, I trim it, I remove any loop points, I go up here, I take everything down except for the hold, and I cut it for it not to like overlap with other 808s hitting after each other. What you also need to do with the 808 is like you right click this and you do edit in audio editor. It will take you into Edison. You mark everything. You press the flag under like the option icons, and you do detect pitch regions. You see it says D2. That means it's in D. So what you need to do, because it would be standard, it would be in C. You need to go in here, and you need to right click the D note for its root note to be in D. Otherwise, it might not sound very good. So let's go over the mixing a little bit. Yeah, the volumes are kind of weird right now, as I said. But for the master, I add a EQ. Do a little bit of EQing. Then I add a soft clipper for it not to peak. And Edison is right here right now just because I checked the 808's root note. So for the melody parts, I wouldn't. So this bit was kind of specific. So what you would usually do, you would take out as much bass as possible until it sounds bad, and then you would go like back a little bit for where it sounds good, because you want to leave as much bass as possible for the 808. And so what I would usually do is I'd go up here under the purple one. I'd scroll all the way down till it's like a square with 4 dots, and then you just drag this. You can also press this arrow and have heat map enabled, which will make you able to see where the most frequencies are active in that specific sound. For this I added a reverb. I turned down the wetness a lot. I just wanted it to have a little bit more, because they were sounding very, very empty without it. Yeah. Basically, if you think a sound doesn't sound like that filled, it sounds like very short, and it's like its decay are not that long, and you want it to be longer. You can also play around with the decay a little bit. In here, I think. Yeah. Yeah, exactly, right here. And then again for the melody part, same thing. This was just very, very it wasn't loud enough. So I maxed out the volume enhancer like it was here, but then it got a little bit too loud, so I just fixed the volume. But it made it rise like the volume, so it was easier for me to hear where it's a mix, and it fit better into the mix. Same here, I take out as much bass as possible. So now we're in on the, so for the snare, hi-hat, and clap, I usually take out as much bass as possible, and then I add a stereo enhancer and max out the volume. Makes it easier for me to hear. It gets too loud for sure, but you just edit the volume afterwards. And here's the 808. What I didn't mention with the 808 is also that I drag up the when you go into the piano roll, I max out the velocity, and so these things down here, you just drag them all the way up, and when you mix, you can check heat map enabled, and you can maybe add a little bit of sub bass. You drag up the bass a little bit. You see I did it just slightly, and then always add a soft clipper to your 808 for it not to peak. I had to actually change the volume a little bit on this, but just to have a dB. Let's see. Yeah, for the hi-hat, dragged it down a lot in volume. Same Parametric EQ, stereo enhancer. Not changing any effects on the chants, just the volume. And let's talk a little bit about the structuring then. So, I want it to be 8 bars introduction. There's many ways you can do it with Plugg beats. So instead of having like a riser, I introduced the end of my 5th melody part instead, for it to mark that you go into the beat. Then we have it playing for like 16 bars, and then it goes into, so the hook is 16 bars. You see, after 4 bars, it's the 808 2 pattern that's playing, hi-hat 2. I have the short chant on here. I don't want it to play in every 4 bars because it gets too repetitive. And so I keep some core elements when it goes into the verse. I remove some elements that take a lot of space for it to get calmer. I let it play. And then for like 1 bar, I remove all the drums and let it go back into the hook. And I slowly introduce the 808. So the melodies come back again, and then the 808 smoothly comes in again. And then you basically repeat that. The thing I did for the 2nd or 3rd hook, technically, I guess, I just introduced 808 at once over here. So it's like, and then I added 8 bars, which I usually had a volume automation for, like this. So how you add a volume automation is you go into the master, you gotta mark right where you want it to be, right? Like this. You go into the master, you right click the volume knob and create automation clip, and you can like drag it how you want it to fade away, just for it to end smoothly. Yeah, that's basically it for this video. I hope you guys learned anything. Appreciate y'all for watching. Take care.